Shara! I am Calum Traveler, and this is Blender for Korman for beginners. If you don't know what Korman is, it is a Blender extension that is primarily designed around building ages for a certain video game called Myst Online Uru Live. Blender is, of course, the usual editing program suspect that we use because it is the closest that we get to 3ds Max, and it is the closest that we have to, being able to replicate the tools that Cyan had when they were first designing Uru. Now, something to note is we are using, you've probably noticed, Blender 2.79. The important thing to note here is that in Blender 2.8, Blender basically overhauled the entire render engine, and it broke backwards compatibility with basically everything that came before it. So basically, Blender for Korman is the answer to that. It is a specific iteration of Blender 2.79 B or nightly, I forget which it is exactly. Specifically, what you'll be seeing me work with is Korman extension version 0.12, which is the last version that worked with 2.79 standalone. Going forwards, that version of Blender will be depreciated, and that will mean that from now on going forward with Korman 0.13, we'll be using an entirely specific version of Blender that is easier to maintain and control and develop for, basically. It's our own basic fork for Uru age development. And, okay, yeah, so that is the basics of what we were doing, and it's also why I'm not going to be showing you an install video to start with, because, I figure if you're already at the point that you're looking at tutorials to learn how to do Blender at this stage, you probably already have gotten it installed. You've probably already done the basic setup. I will be going through that in the future with the 0.13 when that comes out. So look forward to that. But I figure it's for 0.12, it's kind of a little bit of a waste of time to start with the installation when the installation process is going to be changing. And I figure for a first video, people are probably going to be wanting to, know better how to actively make something like this. Like, how do you make an age? How do you make a world? How do you make any of this? And that's what I'm going to show you, starting from scratch, because, starting with a nearly finished age is not a good measure by anything to start with. So, this is going to be an interesting series, because we're going to be going through a couple of different things. I'm kind of filming these episodes a little out of order. This first episode, I just spent like a couple hours filming another episode, and I realized I was getting way ahead of myself. I forgot where I was going to be starting off. Simply, I imported the Age of Paepharin, the pod area, because it seemed to be an easy enough task. But I realized that I would have to do a whole lot of work to make this work, and for starters, all I really need from this import is this item right here. This is all I need for my initial work starting from scratch. This is my pod template. We are going to be building a pod age area. I need to do a whole lot more work to actually import the full pod, but this is going to be what I start with, this pod thing. And yes, it's very incomplete. But, is why we are starting from scratch. Delete. I'm going to delete these existing objects here. So this is your generic Blender screen, right? Basically, and we're going to be working in Korman extensions. We're going to hit Korman if you already have it installed. Yeah, so first things first, we have our age ID setting. This is basically where we're going to be setting up all of our age stuff, you know, all the important data stuff. In this, I already went through adjusting the data for stuff, but I'm going to be copying all of this stuff because this is the ID that I'm going to be working with the, you know, this is the data that I'm going to be working with when I make this age, this pod age. So, first things first, we're going to File, Import. How do I... okay, I'm trying to remember how to do this. Trying to import from a blend. Append. Here we go. So we're going to go to my... First things first, I gotta get two props imported to the age, which are avatar, Korman, mesh. Oops, no, I want object, dummy avatar. And now we have an avatar in our age. Perfect. So, other thing we're going to need is our pod object. And this is pod exterior. So, I'm going to go File, Append. Let's back out. And we're going to go to my full sky untitled blend. I want mesh. I want object. We're looking for pod exterior. And now we have our pod. And if I set this to material, it is indeed it should be textured. But we don't have a light source in here because I deleted the light source, which is not helpful because we're trying to see what we're doing. But we don't really need to see what we're doing for this initial bit here because, yeah, we're making our own stuff here. So, fog color and our original clear color are, well, those are going to be gray. I don't want them to be gray, but I also don't want them to be, I don't want them to be too, too bright here. Okay. Anyway, so we now have our pod model, and we have our little avatar. And I am just now realizing that my whole intent in trying to do the fix the pod that I was going to be fixing, and then trust me, I just realized I was being a huge dummy. Very, very huge dummy. Okay. Anyway, we have our pod, we have our little avatar. Everything's good. Everything's good. And I'm going to close out this pod model, or the pod import, because... Oh, okay, I'll save it. Okay, but anyway, we now have our pod, we have our little avatar. These are our scale references. And what are we building to scale? We are trying to build this area. This is pod 12, my idea. of a pod that has fallen off of its observational cliff and into a place due to volcanic activity. So you can see the pod is kind of on its side there in these drawings. So yeah, this is going to be a fun little thing to try and make into an age. Now, obviously, of course, we're not going to be doing full, everything to start with, but yeah, this is what we're going to start with. So, let's just get into it, shall we? So, Blender, we have our pod, and I'm going to move the pod itself over a ways. So, pod is going to be next to where, yeah, I want this on its, yeah, let's see, RZ, let's turn it so it's facing, roughly the way I want it to face. Yeah, that'll work. And then, nope, wrong axis there. R. So the trick I'm doing for these, I'm hitting the R button, and by default, it'll rotate in any direction you do. But if you hit R and Z, it'll twist it on the Z axis. R and X, it'll twist it on the X axis. R and Y, it'll twist it on the Y axis. So I want my pod here to be kind of crashed into the ground. I'll turn it slightly a bit more. Yeah, that'll do the trick. So this is our pod template, and it is now roughly in the position I'm going to need it to be in when we do all the fun stuff. So, if you're getting into age building, the basics are you need your sequence prefix, a name for the file age, and a file name. So we're going to go File, Save As, and this is going to be, Pod 12, and we'll just call it Pod 12 Blend, and that'll be our Blender file. So we've done the basics. We've set up our clear color. We've set up all of our stuff. Right now, as this age stands, we, do not have anything in it. We have nothing to append to it. We have nothing to build into it. So we're going to create a page, and we're going to write our page info. This page is going to be Pod 12 Terrain. Pod 12 Terrain. Okay, so let's go into our bit here. Nope, I don't want it to be in the pod page, because that was how it was from exported. I want it to be in Pod 12 Terrain, because this pod is going to be part of the terrain, obviously. So, do we want it to have a real-time shadow? Yes, actually we do, because this is basically imported from Payafrin, from the age Payafrin, and I'm going to be building a day-night cycle into this age, like Payafrin has, so I want to maintain the settings, basically, that the pod itself had. So, we have the shadows, we have all that, yep. So, let's start building. Let us start building. First thing we're gonna do is, Alt Home rehomes the camera on your active cursor point. So, that is always a good trick to know. We're going to create our first mesh. We're going to go to the sidebar. We're going to create. We're going to hit plane. Now that's obviously a very small plane. We can obviously, let's go to 3D view. That'll give us all the fancy things we need for doing all of our tricks. We'll go to edit mode. And yes, this is the same bar as down here, but these do different things when you have them both active at the same time. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's Blender. Blender is a wild animal, and, Blender will do as Blender does. So I'm going to just extend out these plane pieces a bit. Now, yeah, that's a fun little shape, I guess. It's not quite level, but it's not quite unlevel. So we have a plane. If we wanted to right now, we could plop down a spawn point, we could put down a light, we could export the age, and that would be it. We're not going to do that. No, not yet. We are going to refer to our map here. Got the pod, got all of this. Yep. What we are going to do is select the whole plane, hit subdivide, and now we've got, you know, a little bit more variety to our vertexes here. If I go to select a specific thing and I hit subdivide, it'll subdivide it further. Now, there's some important or not important reasons, depending on what you're doing, you know. You can now stretch some of this, and you can get a slightly wackier shape going here. Now, you gotta be careful when you're doing this, because if you don't make things triangles when you're doing these, it can get, let's just say it can get testy. And by testy, I mean Blender may just throw a fit and decide that you've made something that is kind of impossible, and it will politely ask you to do it will not politely ask you to do anything. Actually, it is a program, and it is not going to ask you to do anything. But you see here that we've got this kind of roughened up terrain here. So if I select, you know, this plate here, I can bring it down below ground level a bit, and now we've kind of got some unlevel terrain. It's really unlevel. That is, if you've been following along visually, then you just see how simple and quick that was, that I've just now created a piece of unlevel terrain. We're going to just do more of this. We're going to extend out these vertices. We're going to, you know, we're going to take our knife tool. We're going to find an anchor point we like. We're going to, you know, we're going to select a plane piece. We're going to drag it in a direction. We're going to go to our knife tool. We're going to hit a vertex. We're going to find a point. You know, there, just kind of make it a little fun, a little different. This is, you know, this is the freeform stage of it. Now, what we're doing, basically, is we're making a very complicated mesh. Very quickly, we've made a very, very complicated mesh here. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff here that we've done. The key I hit just to focus on this object is the, if you have a number pad on your keyboard, between the num lock and the little asterisk key is a little / and when you hit that, it focuses on a specific object that you're working on, which is so handy for so many things. And I apologize if I'm getting way out of sequence with some of these things. I've gone ahead of myself on some of these things. Normally when you're building meshes like this, when you're building meshes for ages, how Cyan did it is they did a rough model of everything, and then they went in and they refined all the modeling, and then they made it more detailed, more polygons, more. It can get very complicated doing that. And more to the point, it can get very complicated for a new beginner. So sometimes when you're starting, it's best to just kind of, you know, you don't have to do super complicated, you know, when you're starting out. You just having basic items is, just having a basic set of things to start off is pretty good. You know, just, you don't even need your first age, quote-unquote age, to actually be an age. It can just be you messing around in Blender, playing around with the files, and making wild shapes with things. Like, a lot of what I just showed you is, you know, stuff I learned by spawning in, let's go and create a big old icosphere here. So we've got an icosphere. Object, edit mode, I'm going to scale it out a bit. Word of caution when you're scaling. Scaling can get very, very tricky in Blender, especially if you're not paying close attention and your faces get inverted. Because if your faces get inverted, then So let's show that actually. So we go to edit mode on our object, and we're gonna go find our normal faces. Let's find, where's my lines? Display, mesh display. Yeah, okay, there we go. We have all of our little, you see these little lines here. I'm gonna actually increase the size of this. Ooh, that is very long, but now you can see what directions your normals are facing in. And this is very handy for when you're modeling, because you want your normals facing outwards in a lot of cases. In cases of like the pod object mode, if I go to the ice and I go to edit, if I hit normals, I hit all these, this is technically a double-sided mesh. It's got two different textures on it. It's got one texture, but it's got them applied to both sides. Or at least it should. I don't know if that's imported over just yet, but we will find out and see when we actually get into, doing things. But anyway, knowing where your normal faces are is vastly, very, 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 very important. Because if you, like I was saying, if you don't know where your normals are facing when you're doing this, you might end up with an inside-out object. And not only is the object being inside-out going to be visually a problem, it might be a problem with the collisions, too, because your collisions are suddenly on the wrong side. You could walk into an object that should be solid, and then you get stuck on the inside of it, which is no good for anyone. I apologize if that went by too fast. I do get a little zippy when I get excited. Sorry. But yeah, so, object, edit mode. What I did when I just first started, getting out is, I plopped down an object, and I would do something like randomize vertex. Or I would, grab a couple of random vertices, and I would grab it and drag it out. I would, select some faces. I would, and the trick I'm using here to select multiple faces at once is I'm using control. I select a face, I hold down control, and I drag it. I move my mouse and I click it. So let me repeat that. I select a face, control, click, and it'll highlight random faces. And it does this in kind of a path-like motion. So if I drag this out a bit, yeah, and then if I hit A, oops, that was not actually A, that was the wrong key there. If I hit A, it'll highlight all the faces. And if I do some more randomizing a bit, now we have what is basically a rock. It's a very lumpy rock. If I go in, and it looks weird because it's got all flat shading. If I went in and I hit smooth, it would smooth it out and look a lot more weird, a lot more less lumpy, but we want it flat so we can see our faces right now. So like, if I hit flat, if I have it on smooth, you're not gonna see much of the faces, but if I have it on flat, you can kind of see how the train kind of reflects a bit. Normally, ideally, we're gonna want things on smooth, but for the sake of demonstration, we want things kind of to be flat a bit. So if I twist this on Y, yeah, like that. Oh, that looks good. And obviously, we are going to want to name our object, because icosphere is just not very indicative of this. So this is going to be a volcanic rock template. And then for the ground here, we're going to say this is the ground base, Yep. So that is, we've got some stuff now. So if I bring this rock down, RX, if I twist it, yeah. So now we have a bit of a rock. Neat. So you saw that I went through and I, went with this piece here. If you click and drag with your right click, if you click and drag with your right click, you move something around, and if you right click again, it just puts it right back. So let's say that you've got in your bit here, and now you're like, I want to extend this, but I don't want to keep cutting into my mesh. How do I do that? Well, that's where selecting these nodes, and our tool, and our friend, our good friend, extrude region comes in. Because now I can pull this out, and it kind of becomes something in a new direction. There, you see, that just looks all kinds of different now, doesn't it? Yeah. Now, if we repeat that process, if I go and I select all of these faces by, again, hitting a node, holding Control, and then clicking where I want the line to end, and it'll highlight all of those in the line. And if I extrude region again, and then just to make things not quite so samey, I'll go and drag a point. I will go and drag a point, and I'll get my knife, and I'll cut it, and I'll get my knife, and I'll cut it. And if I drag and extend, and now we have this floor piece that's now quite a bit bigger. This is, you know, this is just the basics of Blender. If you really want to get into it, just start plopping things down, start grabbing things, and start, you know, mucking about with it. Edit mode is your friend in learning here, and don't worry if you screw things up originally. I screwed up with a whole lot in Vertigo, and I will give you a small tour of Vertigo later, because, yeah, I screwed up in Vertigo a lot when I was first beginning, and I'm here to teach you so you don't repeat my mistakes. Basically. Yeah, I like that downward slope a bit. Let's check our map. Yeah, if we're right by the pod here, that's going to start sloping downwards towards the water. So, yeah. Right. So, let's make things a little more interesting. We've got this line here, and we've got that boulder there, which I may remove later. Yeah, I'm going to move it. First things first, we're going to drag out this section here, and I'm going to pull it upwards, and I'm going to try and make it into a wall a bit here. Yeah, now look at that. That's... Object mode. Let me drag this boulder out of the way. And now we have a piece of terrain. Let me set that to flat so you can see all the little angles in it. How nifty is that? You've got all of these look at that. We've got a piece of terrain here. We legitimately have terrain now. We could put down a spawn point and we could run with it. But yeah, we're just gonna repeat this process. We're gonna grab vertices and we're gonna drag them out, and we're gonna, we're gonna build the shell of the age that we want to make. And we'll have our little dummy avatar here, Mr. Pipe, because he's got a pipe in his mouth. And Mr. Little Pipe here is going to serve as our scale reference, just as the pod shell here is going to serve as our scale reference for the pod. And as you can already begin to see, this is going to be because if I line this up like so, like, you can see how this is going to start to become a fairly big age in quick order. Like, look at that. That's going to be fairly big. This is going to be fairly big. Yep. So I will stop recording for a bit, and then I will join you after I've expanded this a bit. So I've gotten a bit of progress here. You'll see that I've extended the floor a bit. I've kind of rearranged the pod a little. There's some room here. So the thing you'll notice that I now have a face here that is kind of weird. Why did I ignore a face here? Because I have two sides that are not quite going to line up right, because I did not extrude them at the same time. And there's a reason I did not extrude them at the same time. So I'm going to select, I probably forgot to mention, but this button is for vertexes, the little points. This button is for lines. This button is for full faces. We're going to go vertex. We're going to click, and we're going to make a little triangle shape, and we're going to go to this button, make edge face. Now, we have a little face here. If I repeat that trick, click, make edge face. And now we've got that whole bit of terrain fixed up. If I go through, and if I do this. I'm gonna go extrude region. And you'll see that I did the same thing here, where, it is not quite, lining up where I would expect things to be. So if I go extrude region, now click, and again, like I don't even have to do the point to point to point. I can just do the thing, and it will fill it in. Handy, isn't that? So very handy. Now, this is just kind of boring and zen. We're just building out terrain. We're just extruding a region. We are just grabbing a point, dragging it around a bit. Let's get this a little more of a downward slope, upward slope actually. Shrink that in, extrude region. Oh yeah, we're getting somewhere now. This is supposed to be kind of a volcanic-y region, so, now have this bit of a field here. This way big bit of field. Let's extend this area. Oop. See, now there's an issue, because it sometimes it will circumvent a point. Because if you don't do it right, it'll take the shortest cut. So sometimes you have to go and select the points you want it to hit, like so. Now, I'm not actually going to extend. Now, I'm not going to keep what I'm about to extend because it's going to get a little weird, and you're going to see what happens when I do extrude region. Yep. Actually, that worked out fairly well this time. Look at that. But that's a weird angle right there for that particular face. Let's see, what's our pod look like? Ah, yep, see, we're starting to clip a little. So now if I bring that down, yep. We are now officially touching our pod. Now I'm not gonna go punching holes in my texture here, model here just yet. But I am only gonna extrude. I'm gonna drag this region up a bit. And I'm gonna extrude it out again. Whoop. Ah, there we go. And you'll notice, now I have a little point I can do. Boop, boop. Make edge face. Let's zoom in here a bit. And let's see if this one's necessary or not. Make edge. Oop. There I go, hitting the wrong button. Make edge face. And okay, that is not cutting through just yet. That is good. That is good. So yes, you can see now that this is basically how this whole process is going to go. We're going to grab our bits of terrain, we're going to extend them out, and we're going to, create things by just grabbing things and pulling them out. And think, all of this started by one little small plane. How neat is that? We have here, right here, a section of ground that we have created just by grabbing points and, dragging them out in all random directions. This is solid ground that, well, it's not solid ground yet, but it could be. If we pushed it right now, we really could stand on this. We really could. I know the urge to get in the age is getting to you, but trust me when I say it's gonna be worth it if we wait a bit. See, here's where I'm gonna be doing something with the knife tool here. Oh, I'm gonna go point to point. Now we have that face selected. Then I'm gonna hit the delete key, and we're gonna go delete the face. Now, see, that's not clipping through there now. And of course, this is all just preliminary stuff. I'm gonna obviously come in and I'm gonna seriously make sure that this is all lining up properly when we get to it. So this is where I come upon one of those creative decision moments. I've got this, window, this pod window that's gonna be, basically backing out into a corner of rock that, do I really want to be putting something there? Well, this is where I take that little rock that I made earlier. And it's not the perfect size right now, but I can always make more rocks. In fact, if I duplicate it, twist it, object edit mode, randomized, grab a few vertices there. Now I go grab, drag you back, pull you over here, Now, of course, the windows are going to be all broken out to hell, this thing. I mean, it fell off a cliff and broke. And the windows are how you get in. When the windows is how you get in and out, at any rate. Twist this. Yeah, there we go. Fine. Yeah, it's a broken window. And I'm just roughly putting something in here to give me some idea of what I'm going to be doing, but yeah. That will certainly keep people from trying to get out through a window that is going to lead into a trap corner at any rate. Now, logically, I could put a little tunnel back here, maybe, but why would I have a tunnel back here? Why is there a tunnel? What storytelling avenues would a tunnel provide? And I'm just not feeling building a tunnel down here, It doesn't feel like it's native to the area. Now, I'm giving myself room here because I'm just going to have to model in a fake bottom of the pod here because this bit of the pod doesn't have a bottom to it, and that's traditionally where the actual floor is in the pod. So, that's something I'm going to have to deal with at some point. But for the moment... And you notice that I'm trying my best to avoid the clipping in the where the little pit of rock stuff is here. Like, I'm trying to avoid that clipping so much because, that's going to be messy to deal with. Very, very messy. The trick to what I'm doing here with these faces is, just kind of do it. Just kind of organic shapes, just do it randomly, and if it doesn't look perfect, then that's fine. In fact, the more unperfect, the better. Perfection is a standard of artificiality. So when you're trying to make something look artificial, like a lava tube, you want it to be kind of symmetrical, but you also want to have it a little irregular. So when you have a little cliff face like this that's been totally just crushed by a pod that's just, come in and collapsed on this thing, and it's fallen from on high, and it's hit this ground, and it's, it is a real mess down here. Like, just look at this. And yes, I am coming in here, and I'm going to extrude out another region for a bit of ground here, because it does need it visually, and it's going to need to be there also for those rocks, because, the rocks are part of the storytelling element in here, and it probably doesn't need to be down there perfectly. In fact, I'm not even going to fill in this triangle here, because it doesn't actually need to be here. In fact, I'm just going to shrink this up a bit, rather than, fill it in, because it'll be a bit better. And that way, we're not making things we're not making things too crazy here. Remember, this is all just the rough modeling stages. It doesn't have to be perfect. Oops, I hit the wrong button there. I made a face instead of extrude. Always be careful what you're clicking. Always make sure you're clicking what you think you're clicking. Because if you're not, you may end up clicking the wrong thing. And, you know what? I am just going to select this face and delete it. Boom. And there, that's not clipping so much now. How are these going to connect together? Because I've got this big hole in here. How am I gonna make sure that these, because I can't select this vertex, and this vertex and make a triangle between them. It won't work. It'll go around in a circle like that. That's actually our solution in a weird way. Because let me bring this in like this. So, yeah, you see this big old gap in here, and well, if I go like that and I make a face, and hey, suddenly if I do boop boop, make edge face, now they're linked. Yeah. So extrude region, and if I go and select this hole and I delete the face again, well, now we've actually created a point where if I go vertex and I click this vertex, now it takes the shortest point, these two vertices that are linked. Make edge face. You will not believe how long it took me to actually figure out that trick. You would not believe how long it took me to figure out that trick. You're welcome. Yep. Yep. That's about what I expected. Yep. If I grab this point, I'm going to drag it back. Let's see here. What is this point? Yep. Okay. I'm going to go grab my knife. Boink. Boink. Grab this face. Delete that. There, that's not so bad now. If I go grab my knife. Let's go there. Boop. I don't want to select the whole plane. I want to select just the point. Let's grab the green. Let's drag you back. Grab that. Drag you back. We still got a little bit here. Now, obviously, you don't have to go to all this effort if you're doing something that is going to be unseen. Like, you can have your objects clip all you want when they're poking through something. Like, there's, like, no real point to not have something clip when you're not going to be seeing it. But where, in places where you're planning on something being seen, like right here, you see that line. That is not something I want us to be seeing. And I'm pretty sure that is actually not actually clipping through. That's just Blender being weird. But I won't know for sure until I actually load up the age. Which we are not doing yet, because I am still in the vibe of make faces. But anyways, since I'm taking the moment to pause things, Control, save, overwrite, keep your save. Also, make multiple copies of your saves if you're going to be doing major, if you're doing something that you're not sure you're going to be keeping experimental-wise, when you go into your save files, just, pod 12, you would just go here, you would right-click, copy, paste, and, you make a new save. Make a copy of your save. Make a backup. Make backups when you're doing stuff that you're not quite sure you're going to like. Especially if it's something that you're going to be doing a whole lot of work of and you're like, I'm not sure I like that. I want to undo it. Right? I want to undo it. Make a save. Back up your save, and you don't have to make things perfect in one try. So you notice that I now have the wireframe invisible. Like, I can't see the inside of the pod now. Why is that? A little flag here called backface culling. Boop, 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 boop. If you're trying to see through your mesh and you wanna see what's going on, like if I'm trying to do my angle here and compare to this map here, it helps to see how far out I'm going. And I think I'm gonna extend this slightly out this way to give a bit of a ledge there to step on in the water before dropping it down. And that is going to be the start of our pond area. Inside the pod. Okay. See, I've got my wall. I'm growing it out. I'm doing stuff. Yep. I think this is probably a good place to stop, actually, for this first video. This is our main area. Yeah, object mode. But, you know, I don't think this video is going to be done for this first episode until I actually go in the age and I make it work. So, our first object here. I'm going to collect all my objects. Make sure my camera is on. And that's going to go to the pod automatically. So, let's add collision. Yeah, let's make this solid. How are we going to do that? I'm going to hit this bit here. We're going to add a modifier. We're going to hit collision. We want this to be a triangle mesh, and we want it to be terrain. Yep. This bit of ground is now solid. Do we want the pod to be solid? Yeah, we want it to be solid. So, we're going to go add a modifier, collision, triangle mesh. Yep. And we don't want it to really be terrain. Now, we could make it a surface, which, that's new. I don't remember the surface thing being there. I'm going to have to ask what that's about. But, later. So, we have our Lincoln point over here. This is where our Lincoln point's going to be. I'm going to go tools. We're going to go create. We're going to go empty. We want it empty. And we want this empty to be slightly above the ground because we don't want to spawn our avatar in the feet. This point where everything collides, that is going to be our thing. And this is going to be Lincoln point default. Actually, yeah, Lincoln point default. I'm gonna call this a, where is that? Where is it? It is a spawn point. Boom. Now, let's add a light. Yeah, let's add a light. From the same point, we're gonna go create a sun. Yes, plasma object. I'm going to drag this up, hit this light. Let's give this a slightly orangey light. We're going to give this some, let's give that 100 energy. And do we want it to be diffuse? No, we want it to be specular. Yeah, there we go. Plasma RT affects avatars. Okay. Let's pull this out, put the light, let's put it up here a bit, because we don't want to wash out, actually no, let's turn the light down to like 50, let's put that to 10, we don't want to wash out the, we don't want to wash everything out, especially don't want to blind ourselves. Oh. This is our age. Let's save it. Always save it before you export, people. And we're going to export. And that was fast. That was exceptionally fast. Because we don't have anything. We don't have any textures. We don't have anything. If we launch the age. I was afraid of this. Okay, so, because earlier I was doing stuff. Yeah, what happened here is that I've got 2 bits here. Pod 12 terrain is from this build that we did, and district pod is that is the import I did that I was pulling that from. I did a bunch of exports with that. And so when I do this launch here, it's not going to quite work so well. It's going to crash, I think. It did not want to keep both. Yep, I screwed up. I had a feeling that was going to happen, but I screwed up on that, so. Yep, it's not going to load, so. Go close out of that. And task, yep. Let's export again, and then we're going to launch the age again, and this time it should actually. Ah! Well, that's not helpful. We can't see anything. Well, we can remedy that easily. New material. We're going to call this material ground because it's our ground texture. We'll probably go and we'll make some more textures later. But, yeah, pod concept visit. Let's go into my textures here. I'm going to grab, even though this isn't the texture I want to actually use, I'm just going to grab one of these cleft textures here. Yep. Okay, so new, open, go to, and I'm going to grab, which one was it? Oop, wrong folder. I want to grab cleft desert medium red. So, cleft, actually, cleft desert 01. Let's go with that one. Object, edit mode, select all, assign, material, texture, material, something's weird's going on there. Object mode, I know what's going on here. We want this to be smooth shading. Actually, object, edit mode, smart UV project. There we go. Now we have it working. Yeah, there we go. Let's give this another export. Export age. Launch age. And here we have it. Terrain. Visible terrain. Well, we got some slightly bonky bonkerness there. But would you look at this? Would you look at this? Oops, I forgot to make those rocks visible or solid. But this is a start. And this is our start to a new age. On that note, I am going to say thank you for, I can't get the camera because I haven't set the camera up to do it. But anyway, I'm going to say thank you for watching this, and I hope you learned something, and we will come in and we'll do some more thorough work on this the next time. Shoda Bashimte!